I've never been much of a fan of Paul Feig's films. Bridesmaids was okay at best. The Heat was very average. Spy was miserable. And the less said about that Ghostbusters film, the better. So on that basis, knowing that he had a new film on the way, I wasn't particularly that interested. But the casting of John Cena and Awkwafina and the recent trailer drop managed to make it catch my attention. Almost playing like a comedy version of The Purge at times, this film is set in the not too distant future of 2030. The financially desperate Californian government has created a new deadly grand lottery where a random player is chosen to win a huge prize if they can just survive until sundown. However, other players can claim the prize if they can kill the winner before the time is up, with just one rule: no guns. After all, this is California. When former child actor Katie, played by Awkwafina, arrives in Los Angeles, unaware of the lottery, circumstances lead her to activating a ticket card belonging to the person she's renting a room from. And, what do you know, she wins. All she has to do is stay alive. But seeing as she doesn't know about the rules, this immediately proves difficult. As the world around her descends into chaos, enter Noel Cassidy, played by Cena, a freelance lottery protection agent who offers to help keep her alive for a percentage share of the winnings. Plot-wise, this is extremely predictable affair, with twists and turns so signposted that they probably come up on Google Maps. But who cares when there's so much fun carnage to be had? And with the screen presence of Cena and Fina forming an unlikely combo that generates a great chemistry over the course of the film. Cena is always great on screen, especially when he gets to stretch both his action chops and his comedy chops, and he's an absolute blast here. Awkwafina is an acquired taste, but over the last few years I've succumbed to her awkward charms, so with her delivering more of her usual approach here, I'm all for it. Around the pair, the mix of support add to the fun, even if some do slightly outstay their shtick. Aidan Mayeri as Shady, for example. Simu Liu as the top protection agent with his own business is a fun inclusion. Having worked with Awkwafina previously on Shang-Chi, the pair are clearly having a lot of fun together here. An opening scene with Sean William Scott as a prior winner kicks things off strong with some great action, but also sows the initial seeds of chuckles at the same time. Machine Gun Kelly also pops up as himself, which amuses to some degree, but it does feel like one of the weaker ideas in the film. However, all in all, a good, disposable, yet fun time was had. This film tickled my funny bone throughout, and it kept me entertained enough for it to be considered a success. It isn't perfect, and some ideas are a bit overbaked, but largely thanks to that central pairing being so engaging, the whole thing serves its purpose well to pass a bit of time. It's well worth checking out, even if you're not a fan of Paul Feig. Written and directed by the writing team of the recent Three Musketeers pair of films, this is another Alexander Dumas adaptation from the pair, this time taking the author's 1844 novel about betrayal and revenge and bringing it for a new audience. The tale, for those who haven't caught one of the dozens of previous adaptations, sees a sailor named Edmond Dantes return home to glory after saving the life of a woman at sea against his captain's wishes, and then being granted a captaincy all of his own, whilst also set to marry his one true love, Mercedes. However, he finds himself falsely accused of crimes against the nation, and his closest friend betrays him in an act of jealousy and also to protect the honour of his wealthy family, resulting in Dantes being imprisoned on the island fortress of Chateau d'If. There, over the years, he encounters fellow prisoner Abbe, an Italian scholarly priest who helps Dantes from his suicidal thoughts by spending time educating him in science, knowledge, and language, whilst the pair make slow work on tunnelling their way out of their prison. He also informs Dantes of a great treasure that is hidden away that he's willing to share with his fellow companion once they escape. The years pass, and eventually Dantes finds himself free from his confines, and that the outside world believes him to already be dead. Finding the treasure, he uses the fortune to reinvent himself as the Count of Monte Cristo and sets in motion plans to exact revenge on those who betrayed him. It's clear from watching this and the Musketeers adaptations that the writer-director pair have a love for Dumas' writing, and here they've managed to strip the tale down whilst adding a few personal touches to present an almost 3-hour film that captures the core essence of the fictional work, but in a way that makes it resonate well with a modern audience. The period setting is gloriously represented and detailed, with locations and costumes capturing the authenticity of the different classes and the beauty of the architecture of the period. Into this environment is delivered an almost Mission Impossible scale of revenge, as Dantes plots his plans to bring down the three who stole his life. Indeed, one of the things that I always loved about this tale was the mask-swapping, almost spy-like nature of Dantes' schemes, and here it does feel sometimes ridiculous, but never in a way that undermines the story. Pierre Niney makes for a strong lead, and as the Count's plans play out and his revenge is in sight, he also taps into the heartbreak that is inevitable, as the lives of those Dantes cared for will be drawn into the plot. Lavish in production and grand in scale, this adaptation, clocking in at the runtime it does occasionally feel a little too fast-paced, especially after a well-paced early half. But this never really upsets the flow, and the runtime does fly by with ease. If anything, I left the screening feeling that I'd have quite happily sat through even more with more depth and detail layered in. Overall, with this entry into their films, Delaporte and La Pateliere have cemented their names to be associated with the best Dumas adaptations to film, and I certainly look forward to seeing what the pair bring us next.